If you are just waking up in the UK and joining us, England have declared 325 for 9. Jack Leach, last man out, and Ollie Robinson joining in with the walk back to the dressing room. Called off the field by Ben Stokes after England were inserted earlier today. Tim Southey calling correctly, putting England in. Zach Crawley was flighty and flirty and was dismissed early as well. Faced 14 deliveries, was out 3 times essentially. Reprieved after being bowled from a no ball, dismissed for just 4. And then England really took advantage of some wayward bowling from New Zealand, who made 2 debutants. Blair Tickner, who was expected and flagged up a couple of days back, and also Scott Kuggeleijn. Both bowled a little bit too short and both sides of the wicket and were picked off. Ben Duckett looked in rich form. Real good touch. Surprised when he was out, actually. Second man out for 84, 117 for 2 at that stage. England going in at the break 134 for 2. They came out, added 18 before 2 quick wickets. Ollie Pope and then Joe Root departing. And it just meant that England were under a little bit of pressure at that stage, 154 for 4. Not that they ever really show any signs of pressure, this England side. Ben Stokes alongside the brilliant Harry Brook plundered a few runs. Stokes was bounced out by Kuggeleijn, but then Ben Foakes came in and he batted well. He just provided one of those key cornerstone innings, really. The partnership grew, so did the confidence of both batters, and we started to look at the record books. There's not too many players who've hit centuries in 4 test matches in a row, and Harry Brook looked like he was heading towards that, and may still do. He's going to bat again possibly, but he was dismissed for 89. Stuart Broad swung the bat and was caught on the boundary for 2, and he was followed by Ben Foakes, who suddenly started batting like Ollie Robinson, which was slightly strange. He was dismissed for 38. Wagner on the verge of a fifer. He took 4 after seemingly suffering something approaching the yips for a spell. But Ben Stokes decided he didn't want Wagner to get on the honours board and has called the team off the field. 325 for 9. We've got an hour and a half's play left remaining. I was expecting to see Mike Atherton, but it's actually Steve Harmison. And following Steve, being Neil Manthorpe.
Yeah, interesting. England decide that Ben Stokes has decided that enough is enough. It's time for Jimmy Anderson to shine with the ball and not with the bat. We have been really slow when it comes to the overs. Not all with players' fault. I know the players get a huge amount of stick for the slow over rates, but there has been issues with side screens. And there's also been issues with a couple of players have been hit on the helmet, and the concussion rules now and the way things go. So it's not all been the players' fault, but we are well behind the over rate as the 2 umpires start to make their way slowly to the middle. And I think this is it's not a bold call by Ben Stokes in any way, shape or form. I think he's realised and seizing the moment that while the lights are on, while the clouds are starting to build around us, even though it's probably not going to rain now, I'm admitting defeat, because I thought for long periods of time, arguing with my co-pilot Neil Manthorpe, who's sitting alongside me, I thought it was going to rain for a while. I don't think it is going to rain now, and this is arguably the best time in a test match to bowl. And if you have got conditions like this, well, Ollie Robinson, Stuart Broad, and the greatest, Jimmy Anderson. Not a bad combination to have, Mr. Manthorpe.
Harmy, we can't talk about tradition with day-night cricket because it's only been around for 7 or 8 years since the first day-night test match. There have been actually, if you go back and analyse day-night cricket, there have only been a couple of really lavish collapses under lights, and only one that was actually crazy, 5 wickets in 8 overs, but they happened all early, very early on, in the second and the first day-night games, and ever since then, captains have taken it upon themselves to declare and make sure that they bowl at prime time, and it doesn't always work. I mean, there have been a number of captains who've forced a declaration to do exactly this. and it hasn't always worked. I have to say that every single time I've seen a team come out to bowl under lights, you've always thought, oh, this is going to be tough, this is going to be really tough. And I have that feeling again, I do. I think it will be very tough for New Zealand's openers, but nothing is guaranteed. But yeah, well, just having a look at England set the field, starting off with a modest 4 slips and a gully. No short leg in, but they're clearly expecting Jimmy to swing this pink ball and make life very difficult. They were heading towards this a long time ago. I mean, the way that everybody batted below Ben Foakes, the way they came out swinging, Stuart Broad coming in at number 8, they were always heading to bowl this evening.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're spot on. I think the Ben Foakes one especially, because I was sitting there thinking, why has he gone and tried to play it in this way? And it's obviously the message had come from the dressing room, because I think on a normal day, red ball, Ben Foakes would have probably played for at least 1, possibly 2 more wickets and looked to cash in when the field was brought in later on. But I think the message was, we want to bowl tonight, and here comes Jimmy Anderson.
First delivery, and it hits the middle of Tom Latham's bat as he nudges it out on the onside. Yeah, I mean, it is. Again, I mean, I do like an analogy, but there's England coming all the way to New Zealand to play 2 Test matches, to be so enthusiastic, to be so excited about playing the cricket. Then it's like going to a 5-star cordon bleu restaurant, ordering the very, very finest food, and then eating it as quickly as you possibly can, mopping it up with a bread roll. You know, it's England want to get this Test match.
Tomato sauce on it.
Yeah, that's right. Latham pushes one from Anderson out square of the wicket on the offside, and there's no run. It's lovely. It's wonderful. That may not be the best analogy, but you know, England playing Test cricket. They're coming here. They come all the way to New Zealand. They want to get it over and done with as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and the season, the moment that the season is, you know, the time where it's going to be at its toughest for batting, and you know, no better exponent to exploiting the conditions than Jimmy Anderson. I'm sure he'll be a lot better than what New Zealand dished up.
Left alone by Latham outside the off stump, and taken behind by Ben Foakes. A very interesting piece of cricketing trivia for you, statistical trivia. This is the second earliest declaration in the first innings of a Test match. Second earliest.
Wow. Who's that? Who's come from that?
So England declared after 58.2 overs, and Latham now plays defensively again as Anderson hits line and length absolutely perfectly in his first over. So Pakistan declared on 130 for 9 against England in after 44.5 overs, but I'm almost certain that that was because they were 9 down and their number 11 was injured. But on this occasion, no injuries. 58.2 overs. England pulled out because they want to bowl under lights to New Zealand. Three slips in a gully now as Anderson is in again outside the off stump. It does swing away. It's left alone by the left-handed Latham and taken behind by Ben Foakes once again.
Intrigued to see who's going to, after this ball from Anderson, intrigued to see who's going to take the new ball, whether it is Broad or it is Robinson. Broad didn't get it too much in Australia. It was Robinson that was given the ball, but at this minute in time, Stuart Broad's doing a lot of loosening up. He's waving a plane in. The airport's not far from where we are.
Here's Anderson, and that's pushed away by Latham up to mid-on and fielded by Broad, and there's no run. Thanks to CricViz, by the way, for that stat. That was in 1974. Pakistan declared on 130 for 9 against England in after 44.5 overs. This time here at the Bay Oval in Mount Maunganui, England pulling out after 58.2 overs, not because Jimmy Anderson was injured, but because Jimmy Anderson wanted to bowl, and he has that right. And I think it will be Stuart Broad.
Yeah, Stuart Broad is his first. Is this his first overseas Test match since Hobart? I think it is. He mentioned couple of times in interviews over the course of the build-up to this game that he thought after what was going on in the West Indies, or before England went to the West Indies, that he might never, not so much never play again, but play again away from home. He said earlier on this morning that when England left Australia, and you're talking about the bowling attack, if somebody had said Anderson, Broad and Robinson would play in the same team in the Southern Hemisphere, I think people would have laughed at you. But they're under the lights, the conditions where the pitch was, I don't think there's any three better English bowlers at this minute in time better to exploit what is perfect bowling conditions.
Devon Conway on strike, New Zealand's all left-handed opening pair. Stuart Broad, 3 slips in a gully. Conway comes forward and pushes it straight back to Broad, and there's no run. Make them play, I think that's the key here. Make them play this pink ball. If you want to bowl with the pink ball under floodlights, then make the batsman play. And you could just see, in what is a substantial period of play that we still have remaining, we've got an hour and 20 minutes to go, you could still see England make 325 for 9 declared look like a very, very good score. I think at the moment it is a good score. Here is Broad once more, and Conway is beaten outside the off stump, fizzing past the outside edge and into the gloves of Ben Foakes. Lots of oohs and ahs and support and cheering from the English.
That's a beauty, an absolute beauty. Angled towards off stump, and it's just held its line. Oh, it's held its line. Stuart Broad, a little bit of a scrambled seam. It's pitched. It's probably going on towards off stump, and it's pitched and past the batsman around about four and a half stump. That's how much movement Stuart Broad is getting. He loves bowling at left-handers.
Now Ollie Pope's in at short leg. Here is Broad again. Bowls. Conway comes forward and is a little stabby at that one, just pushing it out on the offside. So in simple terms that we can all understand, Harmy, without getting too technical, why does Stuart Broad have a short leg in and Jimmy Anderson doesn't?
I think Stuart Broad's going more at the batsman. Jimmy Anderson's trying to take the ball or swinging the ball away from the batsman. Stuart Broad's a bit taller, so the ball, when it does nip, the inside edge comes into play off the pad and it goes to short leg, and I think it's seeing as well. I don't think it's there for the short ball. Ollie Pope is deeper than he probably normally would be.
Oh, there would have been a very loud appeal for leg before wicket as Broad goes full and straight, and a little inside edge, I fancy, saved Devon Conway there. Conway he's very mindful of the 3 slips in a gully and the short leg, and so he's not necessarily expecting the full and straight delivery, and it was a big inside edge. That would have been a very close LB.
Yeah, Jimmy Anderson tries to swing the ball away from their hand, straight away away from the left-handers towards the slips, where Stuart Broad is angling it back into off stump, and if it does get an inside edge, short leg is in the game.
Broad in again, bowls. Conway opens the face of the bat and steers it into the gully. Fielded by Jack Leach. Jack Leach in the gully. Is that Ollie Robinson down at long leg?
Yeah, I think it is Ollie Robinson.
He is furiously signing autographs. You see that?
Yeah, and I
love that.
That's the good thing about this England team. That Brendan McCullum says you get one crack at it, enjoy it. These guys are having fun. They're working hard, and they're being very, very good ambassadors for England and for the ECB.
Here is Broad once again, bowls. Conway whips it off his pads, and there is Ollie Robinson having to throw a couple of pens back into the crowd and a few sun hats and autograph bats, and he's quickly reacting, manages to cut it off, saves a couple. But that was brilliant. I mean, he wasn't just doing it willingly, he was doing it with a massive smile on his face. He'd virtually set up a conveyor belt in order to keep everybody happy, signing autographs. So good on Ollie Robinson. There was a time when captains thought that it was in for a dig and not the right thing to do. There was instructions used to go around teams around the world saying do not interact with the crowd, do not turn round, keep your back to them, don't sign autographs, and I'm very glad to say that cricket has moved on from that era. New Zealand 2 without loss. England declaring on 325 for 9. We're not going to get all the day's overs in by any means at all, but with the extra half hour, we've still got an hour and 15 minutes to play tonight. Here's Jimmy Anderson with his second over, the third of the innings, dropped away by Latham into the gap, square of the wicket on the offside, and it's Robinson again who does the fielding, now fielding at mid-off.
Talking about signing the autographs, and being good to be around. There's a lot of children in this crowd today, a lot of children, and I think players do have a duty to. Obviously, you've got fully focused on the game, but when you can do it, I think it's important that you do, because Joe Root said this, and Joe Root's one of the best at it. He said it many, many times before when he walked off at Trent Bridge. Brilliant.
He remembers himself as a 13-year-old.
He had 100, and he'd give a young lad, 12, 13-year-old, a pair of gloves. That young lad, what's it going to feel like?
Anderson in again, bowls down the leg side, and it's just gone past the right glove of Ben Foakes. I think he got some fingertips to it, and he's knocked it on. What was the signal there from the umpire?
It's buys.
Buys, it was buys.
It seemed.
Harsh.
It seemed.
It seemed and then swung.
It seemed and then got the seam. Then the seam's gone upright. And then once the seam goes upright, past the batsman, it swung and dipped late. And if a keeper as good as Ben Foakes can't quite get it, then I don't think anybody else is going to. But again, seam movement off the pitch.
Here is Anderson once again up to the crease now from the Maunganui end, and just dropped down nicely into the offside by Conway. This is clever, experienced and wise batting from the two left-handers. They're going to try, and we were talking earlier about the brilliant Harry Book pinching the strike for themselves. These two are trying to give the strike away.
Yeah, it is. It's like a batsman coming. It's like a batsman having a night watchman at the other end, right? You're going to drop it and you're going to run and you're going to protect me. Well, they're trying to protect each other here by rotating the strike, not giving Anderson a chance to just set up camp just outside off stump.
3 slips in a gully, and that one goes past the outside edge. Beauty from Jimmy Anderson, his best delivery in the 10 that he's bowled so far in this innings. And as always, Jimmy Anderson turns his back and walks back to the top of his run up without any expansion of his emotions. You used the word duty. It's a player's duty to embellish the game's reputation, and but as long as they don't treat it as a duty, I'm happy.
Yeah, we're all role models.
It mustn't be a chore.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't be a chore. You're playing for England.
Jimmy Anderson in once again, and Latham tucks it out towards mid wicket, and there's no run.
But an autograph or a photograph, whenever you can. And it goes a long, long way. I mentioned the Joe Root at Trent Bridge, where you just give this young man his gloves. And Joe Root said after the game why he did it, and he said, I was 13 once, and if somebody did that to me, I wouldn't sleep for a week. Can you imagine getting a pair of gloves off Joe Root when he's just getting 100? What that 13-year-old is going to try and be for the next 3 or 4 years in his junior cricket. He's going to try and be like Joe Root.
Latham now opens the face of the bat and guides it defensively to backward point where Pope fields, and there's no run. The England players, most of them, have got sweaters on now. Temperature has certainly dropped. It's a nice chilly, maybe balmy is the word. I think anybody that lives in the northeast of England would scoff at me for describing the current temperatures here as chilly. It's certainly about, what do you think, it's about 13, 14?
Yeah, there is a chill in the air, but as a man from the northeast of England, sitting here with a pair of shorts on, comfortable in my temperature, I would say, 14, 15, something like that. I have relented. I don't think it is going to rain, which pains me to say.
It brought in again. Oh, and that's an aerial drive, a not controlled drive from Devon Conway, who's actually taken his sweater off now, and he picks up a couple of runs out towards cover. Jack Leach does the tidying up. Conway moves on to 5. Tom Latham has just a single. 3.1 overs gone in. New Zealand 10 without loss in reply to England's 325 for 9, which Harry Brook top scored with a breathtaking 89, and only marginally less breathtaking, for me anyway, Ben Duckett's 84, almost scoring 100 before lunch on the first day of a test match. Forward comes Conway to the next one from Broad, playing defensively up to mid-off, no run.
It only pains me to say the rain, not that I wanted the game to stop, because I'm intrigued on how this game and this next hour and sort of 10 minutes is going to be, but behind the the press area that we're in, the clouds it was geared up for a monumental thunderstorm. It was going to be a picture. This ground is a picture, but I think with a bit of fork lightning and I think it could have been even better. That's why it pains me it's not going to rain.
3 slips in the gully. A short leg, quite a deep short leg, brought in outside the off stump. Not very far outside the off stump. Devon Conway leaves it alone to the oohs and ahs of Ben Foakes and the slip cordon. Did you not have enough rain in 3 days before this test match started? Were you not satisfied?
I was satisfied, yes. I was very satisfied with what became, and it came before, but the way they were building it was like Pretoria. It was like Super Sport Park when you stand at Fine Leg and the motorway over the back, and it just the darkness and the fork lightning's coming, and you think, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be fun. But I'd much rather watch Broad and Anderson in these conditions go hard at New Zealand, because this is going to be just as fun, especially with the leave that Devon Conway's just had.
We've had a leg slip added now as well, and that one is just a little bit too wide outside the off stump, and that's a far safer, securer leave by Devon Conway. So there was just Stuart Broad speaks so well. He's so entertaining every time he addresses. Just put him anywhere near a television camera, and he's very photogenic and very, very, very well spoken.
Especially
as well.
when he wants a game.
That's exactly right. But it was a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about Ben Stokes' captaincy. And he just said, there are times where you wonder whether it's a bit over the top. 5 slips in a gully. You say, Stokesy, can we lose a slip, please? Here he is again outside the off stump, and it's left alone by Conway. And he's smiling as he tells the story. And he says, Stokes turns and he says, no, just get on with it.
Simple lad from the northeast of England, adopted northeast of England, Christchurch, born and bred, Ben Stokes, and yeah, he's been a revelation to this side, and he's saying to his bowlers, like he says to his batsmen, you've got to have a good crack at, try and be the best you possibly can be. Don't worry about the negative side. Always think the positive side. And at this minute in time, the field is very, very positive.
3 slips a gully and a leg slip as well as Conway comes forward to the last ball of the over and plays it away defensively, square of the wicket on the offside. 4 overs gone, 10 without loss. Apologies to Dan McHardy, I've gone a wee bit over. I owe you a couple of minutes. Dan McHardy will take over commentary for the next 20 minutes or so. And Harmy, you were saying before the game that we only really get 45 minutes to an hour of night time in these day-night games, and here we are. We've entered night time finally.
We have finally entered night time, and I think we've obviously entered it a little bit earlier than what we normally would get because of the amount of cloud cover that was behind, especially our vantage point and our commentary box, and I think it's made it for a better spectacle, a better evening. The ball's certainly doing something. Jimmy Anderson has come out the attack after 2 overs. Ollie Robinson is going to come into the attack in that 2-metre release point that Ollie Robinson has. Where the lights have taken effect, the brand new pink ball, it doesn't get any harder here for Devon Conway or Tom Latham.
Yeah, 60 test wickets already in 15 matches, an average of 20. Fine bowler. From around the wicket he starts. Full of length, wide, outside of off stump, and no stroke from Tom Latham. Evening, Harmy. Good morning to everyone listening in the UK. You're listening to TalkSport 2 on DAB Radio, online at talksport.com, on your smart speaker or by downloading TalkSport app. My name is Daniel McHardy. England 325 for 9, declaring after 58.2 overs because, heck, they can. They wanted to have a crack under the lights. Under the 5th over, Robinson from the Mount Maunganui end, tied it to off stump, leaning forward and defending. To the offside of the wicket is Latham. 2 left-handers, of course, in Latham and Conway. Unsurprising to see Broad, given the new ball, with his ability to bowl so well to left-handers, as we've seen over this wonderfully successful and long career. You surprised Anderson's out after only 2 overs, though?
No, I think Jimmy might fancy bowling at this end. The way the wind is, the wind's dropped a little bit, but the wind is going, from our right to left.
Robinson into the pads, ballooning to the onside and taken. Good catch under the helmet, and England have the breakthrough. Inside edge, ballooning up, and as it Pope under the helmet, comes forward, takes a good catch, and England have the breakthrough. Robinson has only taken, 2 balls to get amongst it. Third, in fact, and it's 10 for the loss of 1.
As we just discussed with Neil Manthorpe, the reason why Stuart Broad had a short leg is because the height difference between Broad and Anderson, the height is a little bit more for Ollie Robinson from a release point, and it's going back towards the left-handers off stump. Anderson's taking it away, that's why he doesn't have a short leg. Robinson and Broad going back onto off stump, and any sort of movement, which there has been so far in this, what has it been, 4.3 overs, it's nipped back, inside edge, onto thigh pad, and Ollie Pope is a fantastic short leg fielder. Not easy catches at short leg, but that for me is one of the easiest ones that young Ollie will have. Make no mistake with it, takes comfortably just above the ground. And Ollie Robinson's 3 balls into this New Zealand tour. Ben Stokes is rubbing his hands, and 325 for 9 declared is a great decision now, because Kane Williamson walks out. Could the former New Zealand captain be walking out into a more tougher international environment than he's had so far in the last sort of 4 or 5 years? I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure, Dan, because of the wicket, the way it is, the lights being on, the pink ball, Robinson, Anderson, Broad. I don't think it gets much harder than this.
That is such a good catch from Pope. I know you almost paint a picture as if it's regulation for a man of his talent, but the body position keeping nice and low, weight going forward, can still spring himself forward. I know match referee David Boone's probably nodding in appreciation.
Yes, he will be. My first ever captain. He didn't say a great deal to me, Booney, but when he did, it was normally to tell me off. But what a... And again, I'll talk about Booney till for the day's end. Great man. Unbelievable short leg fielder. Low centre of gravity. A bit like Ollie Pope. Always coming forward, exactly how you described it. And that's why he made it an easy catch. The minute you go up, then you lose balance.
So Williamson on strike. Robinson from over the wicket now bounds in, bowls full and fending for the ball and finding the batters. Williamson gliding it backward of point. He's off the mark with the brace. And 12 for the loss of 1 in reply to 325 for 9. This is just what England would have wanted. Conway and Williamson's New Zealand's 2 best players, one averaging 55 in Test, the other one averaging 54. You want them at this stage. New ball, pink ball. It's still foreign to players. We don't play enough of it, really, for anyone to be self-assured enough in these conditions.
Absolutely, and they said they don't like bowling with it, but I bet you they wouldn't swab it now.
He's in again and squaring Williamson up, hitting high on the pad. Probably going over, maybe down leg as well, but they're all up in unison. There's great body language and tone to the English field. 3 slips and a leg slip. Man under the helmet, lots of traffic for Williamson. Have to work his way through.
I think Ben Stokes is quite keen on that. I know he's the most positive man in the world right now. Thinks everything is out, but he was asking Ben Foakes about the DRS. Ollie Robinson had none of it. He would turn around straight away and thought it's nipped back and going down.
Yeah, it's done too much. He's in again, moves past umpire Gaffney, wider of off stump, no, seen back into the right hand. At the end of an over, a successful one for England and Robinson. They got rid of Latham, well caught by Pope under the helmet. Thick inside edge, ballooning away in front of the short leg. Great body position and movement forward, took it comfortably with 2 hands. So after 5 overs, New Zealand are 12 for the loss of 1 in reply to England's 325 for the loss of 9. If you're just tuning into our coverage here on TalkSport 2, England sent in after New Zealand won the toss and decided to have a bat Crawley made 4, Duckett 84, Pope 42, Root 14, Brook 89, Stokes 19, Foakes 38, Broad 2, the last to go Leach for 1, leaving Robinson 11 not out. For New Zealand, Southey 2 for 71 and Wagner 4 for 82. Kugelheim picked up 2 for 80. Here is Broad bowling to Conway. He comes forward and defends from just outside of off stump into the offside, and there's no run, while Tickner also on debut 1 for 72. Those were the wicket takers for New Zealand. Evening, Michael Atherton.
Good evening. Very dramatic, isn't it now? The inky black sky, lights bright, there's a real gleam on that new pink ball. This is exactly the time that teams want to be bowling in day-night test matches, which is why Ben Stokes pulled out a rather dramatic declaration on the first day of a test.
3 slips, a gully, a leg slip as well, as Broad continuing around the wicket, probing in towards that off stump, leaning forward, playing with very soft hands as Conway takes the inside edge, squirts to square leg. He moves to 6 with the score now 13 for 1 with that single.
We made it the second earliest declaration ever in Test cricket. I don't
Pakistan
know
in the late 70s.
Pakistan in 74, yeah. Be interesting to know, were England 5 or 6 down, whether he would have declared then. But 9 down, it made perfect sense. And very proactive captain, whipping Anderson out of the attack after 2 overs, and then Robinson striking with his third ball.
I think this England declaration, the earliest declaration in a test since July 1939. In the West Indies at Manchester, 164 for 7 after 55.2 overs. That was a second innings though, of course. Here is a beauty from Broad, steepling bounce outside of off stump, getting past the outside edge. He stands hands on his chin. Such a theatrical bowler. Williamson, on the other hand, just meanders down, does some gardening as always. It's fresh off a 200 against Pakistan, where he didn't even celebrate, basically, getting to 200.
I reckon these are more testing conditions than Pakistan.
Slightly. It was the same.
Even I could get some runs in Pakistan on those pitches.
Everyone was up celebrating, and I think he rather embarrassingly put up the bat after about 30 seconds. This is very testing. He gets one past the inside edge, Broad, full of length, nipping back in, challenging that front pad.
He's a big surfer, isn't he, Kane? This is his hometown. Do you reckon he'd be out in the waves on the morning of a day-night game? Would that be his thing?
Well, he's got time for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Might take his dog for a stroll. I think I saw his dog on social media wearing his black cap yesterday.
Well, his dog took that great catch, didn't he?
Yeah.
During lockdown.
Yeah.
He posted it to Twitter. Fantastic slip catch taken by his golden lab.
Yeah, so the golden lab received a black cap yesterday. Williamson, study of concentration, looks up, sees Broad bowling full outside of off stump, and in his traditional fashion he plays very late under his eyes, opening the blade, letting it glide down and past the third slip, down to the fence for 4 at third man. New Zealand fans have seen that stroke numerous times over the years. He plays so late, 17 for 1.
Yeah, classic Williamson, the ball just virtually dropping at his feet and then running down past the widest of those slips because he plays with such an angled bat. And you often see teams either bring that slip catcher very close or indeed move a little bit wider to cut off that dab down to third man.
Broad, wide of the crease, wider of off stump, and glided this time straight to the gully. There will be no run. Seen in recent times, so almost that third slip get on their knees and sort of a prone position. I'm not sure I'd be too comfortable if someone asked me to.
It's true, but I think from a captain's perspective that you should manoeuvre your slip fielders according to who's batting. You know, people often think that you take a slips fielder takes his position from the wicket keeper. You should also actually take it from the batter. So if a batter's going very hard at somebody like Matthew Hayden, for example, who'd go really hard at the ball, you can give yourself a yard. Somebody like Williamson, who plays very deftly and late, you've got to come up 2 or 3 yards. There are so many times when you see edges just drop short of a slip cordon because they're a bit intransigent. They don't really move according to the batter.
Robinson continuing from the Mount Maunganui end, from around the wicket, bowling to Conway. He's got plenty of time. He comes forward and deflects to point, and there is no run. Plenty of chat behind the wicket in the heavily packed cordon. There's Root at first slip. He's working furiously on the ball. Hard to pick up the players, Michael, with the jerseys on, but I'm pretty sure Crawley's at second slip. Hard to miss his frame.
Yeah.
I win no prizes for that. But now 4 in the quarter. Great to see. Man under the helmet. That is Pope. He's already taken a good catch. Here's the giant figure of Robinson bowling to Conway, who flicks him away. Down towards fine leg. Flicks the back leg up in true Conway fashion. The Flamingo gets a run down towards fine leg. Moves to 7. It's 18 for the loss of 1.
You sometimes see teams as well bring their fine leg up for Conway, maybe to almost a 3/4 position, because he does flip it in the air, as you say. He plays that shot where he goes on one leg and he just flips it, and it can just carry 20 yards short of the boundary. So sometimes that fine leg is brought in, not on that occasion.
You'll also see seam bowlers at times target the leg stump too. Generally not a plan in old-fashioned cricket. Let's target the leg stump to a left-hander. Here's Williamson beaten outside of off-stump, full of length, again hitting the seam, just moving away enough to get past the New Zealand number 3 through to folks behind the wicket.
Well, Jimmy Anderson put some big raps on Ollie Robinson the other day, actually, in his press conference. He said he thought he was one of the best in the world right now. He said he's the bowler that none of the England batters want to face in the nets. That he's right on song at the moment.
Tall figure, bowls with good pace, hits that seam hard. And on a surface like this, where there's a little bit of me, he's going to be tough. He gets the ball to nip back in from too wide of off stump. Shorter of a length and carrying around waist height to folks. Even in Pakistan on those utterly benign surfaces, he was able to get the ball to move laterally. And that tells me everything.
England was superb, and I know New Zealand followed shortly afterwards, and you couldn't quite manage to
get over the line.
And the difference was simply that the pace at which England scored, New Zealand not quite able to score at the same pace, and therefore didn't quite have enough time to take those 20 wickets.
Yeah, 2 thrilling test matches that ultimately ended in draws. Robinson wide of off stump, no stroke.
Did you go? Were you there in Pakistan?
No, I was in Petone in Wellington, calling the game.
Calling from here? Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, through the night.
Because it's a great tour these days,
yeah,
Pakistan.
We secured the rights fairly late in the piece. I was desperate to be there. I've never been. It's a place I would love to be able to call, especially in winter. You know, we're at 22 degrees. That's perfect for me, Michael. I could not do summer. I'm not built for that. I'm a Wellingtonian. Here is Robinson, and again beating Williamson. He squares him up. He's trying to play from the crease line. Good pace, good carry, good over, good bowler. 18 for the loss of 1. 7 overs gone. Jared Kimber, come on in.
Yeah, guys, you were talking about Conway before and the leg side, and we've already seen a leg slip for him and a short leg, and teams do really like to attack him very straight. So far in Test cricket, he hasn't failed that much, but when he has failed, it's generally when the ball's been spinning into him or when the ball's been seaming into him more. So 72% of his edges in Test match cricket have been the inside edge, not the outside, and it's certainly how teams want to attack him. Doesn't have a great record against left arm finger spin. He's probably not going to face that for a little while, although you never know with Stokes, he might pull Leach out of nowhere. But generally teams try and bring the ball back into him, which is the opposite, of course, of what you usually do with top order batters.
Excellent stuff, Jared. Appreciate that. 18 for the loss of 1. He's just leaning on his back, Williamson, and the non-strikers end, looks up and sees Conway ready for Broad from around the wicket full, and it's driven up Bushley. Is it taken? No, I think it's just landed in front. The mid-on, who's in line with the stumps at the non-strikers end, so quite short. Well, actually, Conway's giving a signal to Williamson if this was that it just shot on, bounced a little bit on him. Heart and mouth stuff. Robinson was the man. It's Conway's first sign of an aggressive stroke on the drive. Just not in control. Needs to be. Waits, Broad bowls full, and he leans forward and plays with an open blade. Keeps it down, gets it wide of the gully, down towards third man. Just 1 will be taken. 19 for the loss of 1 as Conway on 8. Williamson 6. The man out, Latham, caught it short leg for 1.
Do we know why this is a particular time to bowl? What is it? What is it, the effects of the dusk falling and the lights that make it? Is it moisture in the air, or I don't know.
Colour of the ball not having done it your whole life,
Yeah.
you've grown up with red and white balls.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, this is the time to bowl. They all say it in a day-night game. Get on for the last hour and a half if you can. And it provides a particular rhythm to the game and a strategic part of the game that you don't see in day test cricket.
Broad now to Williamson, challenging the inside edge, nipping back in, hitting high on the thigh pad. One of those uncomfortable blows. He almost gave it a rub, then decides, I'll wander down. Maybe that's an assignment you're giving Mr. Kimber. Is it what we think? Is there reality to it?
Well, all the stats would say, I think, in day-night cricket, that a particular period of the game, more wickets fall. You know, Australia try and be bowling for the last hour and a half in Adelaide, basically throw the ball to Mitchell Starc and Bob's your uncle. And that's what England have done here. That's why the declaration came.
Or Hazelwood, or Cummins. They go all right with the pink ball, those three. Here is Broad, and again touch tight to off stumper. Far more assured is Williamson, defending back along the pitch.
And so from New Zealand's perspective, it's about battling through. What have we got now? We've got basically 50 minutes play, is it? 50 minutes or thereabouts? If they can get through without too much damage, it might be totally different tomorrow morning. The sun could be shining, pitch suddenly looks flat again. But if England can nip 2 or 3 out now in the last 50 minutes, then they're right in the game.
Here is Broad once more from over the wicket, too wide of off stump, no stroke, so 19 for the loss of 1. And we've seen, frenetic scoring pace early in England's 325 for the loss of 9. Now we're seeing a scoring rate at 2.43, but you can't tell me it's not entertaining. There's that element where ball is just on top, and that's where I actually find Test cricket most exhilarating. When there's a legitimate chance for a wicket every ball, you just can't help but sort of creep a little bit further forward.
I'm with you. That's the type of cricket I like best. Pakistan was thrilling before Christmas, but it was so dominated by the bat.
Broad. It's two leg side as Williamson leans forward, turns to square leg. There's going to be no run. That is the end of the over. 8 overs have been bowled. Broad has none for 10 off 4. The wicket taker is Robinson, who has 1 for 3 off his 2. More from Michael Atherton and then John Hill.
Yeah, Robinson it will be to continue. Bowled a lovely last over to Kane Williamson. Williamson still the wicket that all opposition teams want more than anything. And he beat him twice on the outside edge, once pushing forward, once on the back foot. And Williamson will be battling for all he's worth to get through this spell of Robinson. You'd think that Stokes will think about just rotating Robinson, Broad, Anderson. He might give himself a trundle if the ball starts to swing. Stokes tends to save himself when the ball's either swinging normally or reverse swinging as it was in Pakistan. But it's the seamers who'll do the work tonight, I would have thought.
Thoughts of Michael Atherton. We're going to be crossing back to the UK very shortly to get those of Jarrod Kimber as well. Wow, what a field that is, Mike. Pretty much pitch black here in New Zealand. The floodlights are on, 4 slips in place. Point as Robinson is in, left alone this time by Conway. Jarrod Kimber is with us. What have you got for us, Jarrod?
Yeah, just on Athos was talking before, whether the ball does anything more under lights. It doesn't seem any more under lights. It's almost exactly the same. It swings about 12% more, which is a little bit. But when you talk to the players, they usually say that they don't think the ball does that much more. They just find it a little bit tougher to pick up the pink ball at night, and sometimes in that dust period specifically as well. But it's the fielders that quite often complain the most, of course.
Thank you very much. Well, I tell you what, if the fielders complain any more than the England bowlers did in the lead up to this test, so that will be something. Robinson again, and again, Conway defensive. The over rate has been pretty slow today. No chance whatsoever we're going to get all 90 overs in. We've had some stoppages in play, a couple of batters hit on the helmet. Joe Root seemed to have a problem with the contact lens here and there. But thankfully we haven't had any stoppages because of the bad weather. You get lucky in this part of the world and you get unlucky. And today we've been lucky. There's been a touch of rain in the air over the last 20 minutes or so, certainly outside. There was lightning on the distance as Robinson wider of the crease, and I tell you what, that was a good leave there, Michael Atherton, because that was on the line of off stump, but it bounced over it.
It did, and Conway's just not quite sure on the angle, because Robinson has the ability, as all good bowlers do, to take the ball away from the left-hander. And in fact, that particular delivery, the seam was canted towards the slip, so I think Robinson was trying to take it away. It ended up just coming back on the angle and was very close to off stump. Fortunately for Conway, the length of the ball, the height of Robinson took it over the top.
It'll be interesting to see what the follow-up delivery is, as Robinson is once again in. This time Conway does get bat on ball. The ball kind of squirts out at wide of Stuart Broad, positioned at mid-on. 20 for 1, and this game really has kept us all captivated. One irony though, Mike, I'm not sure where you sit with day-night cricket, but you know, one of the things I always heard about day-night cricket, the reasoning for day-night cricket, was it would mean that people could turn up after work. The opposite happens though, doesn't it? Because
they drift away.
Well, they didn't just drift. I mean, I know the food is good in the food courts here and in the bars and whatever, but as soon as play was signalled to have come to an end ahead of the dinner break, and also you're basically going to forcing people to sit around in the cold for 40 minutes. Up they went. Left alone again, this time by Williamson. He's happy, and he won't go anywhere near that line, that's for sure.
Well, it certainly doesn't work in England. We've had one day-night game, and it was a miserable game at Edgbaston in 2017, drizzle and cold, and I hope that experiment is never repeated. What it was really designed for are places like, say, Barbados, where early nights, warm evenings, where Test cricket is a struggle to sell, and where the ground is in town and people can walk up after work, in theory, and watch a bit of cricket towards the end of the day.
Robinson, final ball of his delivery, right arm over the wicket, a little bit of an appeal there for leg before. Robinson's having a little words. Ooh, a little bit more of a word than I expected. I think Robinson wants this. Stokes less so.
Well, there's definite bat involved. It's just whether it flicked pad before bat. There were two sounds. I don't think Stokes is going to review. Just going back to day-night cricket, the other place where it succeeds is Adelaide, because it's a regular game in the calendar. Yeah, just looking at the replay, it was too high.
It was back leg, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a little bit too high there. I mean, certainly for that final delivery that Conway faced before he got off strike, the ball comfortably clearing off stump, and I think he would have done so again there. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about day-night cricket.
Yeah, I mean, Adelaide is a regular slot in the calendar, so you know that second Test match of the Australian summer, it's going to be a day-night game. It's quite a nice scene at Adelaide. Again, it's a ground that's in the town. People can walk up over the bridge there. But it sure as hell don't work in England. That's for certain. Late nights, you know, that it doesn't go dark until, what, 9 o'clock in the height of summer, or 10 o'clock. And usually cold evenings as well, so I think we can can that as an experiment in England.
And I think it has been canned, because we've heard no talk of one since, have we? Jimmy Anderson.
Also, we sell tickets for Test matches in England. They're routinely sold out for 4 days. It's not as though you have to kind of experiment and find ways of selling the game.
Absolutely. And also when you consider the Indian market, which is of course, you know, a huge one, it doesn't make any sense, does it, in England? Is Anderson returning round the wicket, and Conway again just looks a touch uncertain, prodding forwards.
He's a good player though, Dean Conway. England fans won't need reminding of it when he got that brilliant 100, or was it a double 100 at Lord's?
On debut?
Yeah, on debut. He's a very good all-format player, and it's a really formidable looking batting lineup. The bowling's a bit sketchy for New Zealand, but the batting is very formidable and strong.
Round the wicket again, Anderson, and forward again is Conway. Ian Bishop recently tweeted that I think it's something along the lines of that Devon Conway needs to be mentioned in the list of current all-format players at the top of the list. He needs to be mentioned. He's been a success in the tests, 50 over and 20 over. You know, coming to international cricket late, he had to serve out a qualification period for New Zealand, but yeah, 200 on debut at Lord's. Doesn't get much better than that. Anderson again, there's an edge, and he's been dropped. Well, Zach Crawley at second slip has just put down what you'd have to say, Mike Atherton, is a regulation chance at slip. It went in and it went out.
Well, this is a dolly, really. As they go at slip, this is an absolute dolly. Perfect kite. He didn't have to move. It should have been straight in. It popped out. Whether because of the point Jared Kimber was making about the difficulties of picking up the ball under lights, who knows, but it was a bad drop.
Anderson again, and the line not quite right. Conway can get off strike. This is travelling down the leg side, and he gets off the mark. Well, absolutely. Jared Kimber was just with us, and he made the point that it's the fielders that complain the most. We have seen Crawley drop one or two along the way, truth be told.
Well, all slip fielders drop them. Nobody will be perfect there, but as they go, that is about as easy a slip catch as you'll get, and Crawley will be feeling it today because he had a horror knock at the start of the day where he could have been, well, he was dismissed pretty much 3 times in the space of 14 balls. He was dropped second ball, got bowled, and then nicked off again, and now he's compounded it with a drop at second slip.
Nope, not his day. That's been the case on quite a few occasions against New Zealand. Another single-figure score. I wasn't on commentary duty at the time. He was out for 4. 9 single-figure scores in 12 innings against New Zealand. And incredibly, his average of 9.9 has actually taken a drop today. Anderson is back, and this time he is bowling over the wicket to the right-handed Kane Williamson. Narrowing in on that off stump, but Kane Williamson is forward and in defence. You're listening to TalkSport 2. Cricket coverage, live and exclusive. Get in touch with us at cricket_TS or at TalkSport2 on Twitter. And call us as well, 03717 223344. We're going to have a following on phone in. Don't worry, Mike, you don't have to take calls. But Steve Harmison will be. So if you've got a point to make about England's surprise declaration, as Anderson just drops his leg back a touch, but not enough to push Kane Williamson onto the back foot. But yeah, if you want to get in contact with us and you want to have a chat with Harmy, who hasn't spoken enough today, give us a call, 03717 223344. And Athers, we've got a couple of questions for you as well. I mean, there's so much going on, it almost seems... Well, we've got a break between overs. So we've had a few texts in, a few tweets in at cricket_TS. Lily Alumi says, what was your favourite test match you played in New Zealand? And what is your favourite test ground? Not necessarily in New Zealand, that second question.
We had a nice tour here. It's a long time ago now, of course. I'm so old, I've been retired many, many years. But a great tour in 97.
Robinson, this one's left alone by Devon Conway. The score remains 21 for 1.
Won a famous test match chasing over 300, which was a significant thing then, maybe not so much now. But Stephen Fleming, who's here commentating on television, it was his first series as New Zealand's captain. He went on to become a great captain of his country. I like the boutique grounds here. Mount Maunganui, this is lovely. Hagley Park in Christchurch, the Basin Reserve in Wellington, lovely grounds.
Well, there you go. Basin Reserve is where the second test will take place, as Robinson again slightly wide of the crease, and this one will be got away by Conway, the left-hander, just punching the ball wide of mid-off for a couple. He moves to 11, Williamson 6, and the score New Zealand 23 for 1. Start of the 11th over. The trail by 302 after earlier today England posted 325 for 9, and then they declared. Took me by surprise. Did it take you?
Not so much, just because of the rhythms of day-night cricket and the fact that England were 9 down. And I've seen Ben Stokes, he's a captain who doesn't want to let things drift. So rather than just wait for Anderson to get out, get New Zealand in and batting.
Conway readies himself. This is too wide from Robinson, who's got 4 slips at his disposal. And 2 catching fielders on the offside in front of the wicket. A short leg as well. Stuart Broad's in his customary position at a wideish mid-on. And fine leg is about, 7 or 8 metres inside the circle. Damien Sharkey says, I don't really want to talk about the Ashes because this match is a phenomenal one. But we have asked for questions, and Damien Sharkey's been good enough to get in touch. And he says, what are the key matchups in the Ashes you are looking forward to most? You can answer after this delivery. Fuller from Robinson, and a good grab from Ben Foakes diving to his right behind the stumps.
Well, looking at Australia's batting in India, it looks a bit ropey to me, apart from Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne. I think those are the two absolutely key wickets come the Ashes in June, July. So find somebody to get one over Smith and Labuschagne, and I think that will go a long way to winning the Ashes.
Yeah, suddenly looks a little bit shaky for Australia, and I was about to say I'm pleased to say that it's on TalkSport 2, that second Test match, but I'm also pleased to say they're looking a little bit shaky. Robinson again, he's going to be a problem for Australia. This is straight, and Conway is forced to play this. Still doesn't seem to be quite getting his feet moving, bat well in front of pad, but squirts away in New Zealand, I should say. They just want to get through this session, don't they?
Yeah, they've just got to battle hard. It's what have we got, 35 minutes left to play. It's not going to be easy against a combination of Robinson, Broad, Anderson, with that gleaming ball, the light shining on full beam, and it's tricky, but it'll be a different ball game tomorrow afternoon when they come back, if they can get in tonight and unbeaten.
Slightly open stance from Conway. He drills this back to Robinson on the bounce, and Robinson half tries to get out the way and half tries to stop. Either way, no run to end a decent over for England. 11 overs in, 23 for 1 New Zealand. And I suppose this is I suppose one of the, we've talked about the negatives to day-night cricket, but it's added an element to proceedings.
Well, the strategy is different. That point, would Ben Stokes have declared 9 down in a day game? No, absolutely not. England talked about it in the build-up to this game, to try and use the periods during the day when batting is easier to score quickly and manoeuvre themselves into a position where they can bowl when things are at their most helpful for the bowlers, which is basically about the last 90 minutes of play, and that's exactly how it panned out today. And the only reason that they could really be in a position to declare was the quick scoring again, England rattling along at 5.57 runs and over, which is a remarkable run rate for Test cricket. And I thought Ben Duckett and Harry Brook played absolutely magnificently. Brook really eye-catching again, but Duckett as well at the top of the order. I thought that was one of his best innings for England today. So two young players who had a good day, and then England were a bit careless elsewhere, but manoeuvred themselves into a position to declare.
Yeah, New Zealand, for me, they got into their work as the day progressed. England capitalised early on, extravagantly from Williamson. This is well outside off stump from Jimmy Anderson, who's seen a drop go down. Conway fortunate to still be there, dropped by Zach Crawley at second slip. We're getting the stats surrounding his catching percentage. Don't go anywhere, listeners. Jarrod Kimber will be back at the end of the over.
Well, I'd be interested to know what Jarrod says, because my impression is that Crawley's got quite a good pair of hands. He's obviously got a big reach because he's a big lad, and I've seen him take some good catches there.
Leg slip in position now, and trapped on the pads is Williamson. Anderson wants that, and he cannot believe that the umpire hasn't given it. Well, England have decided to review this one. Mike Atherton, your initial thoughts?
Well, I just wondered whether I heard two sounds, whether there was a bit of an inside scratch before it went on to the pad. England like it. You can hear on the stump cam that their fielders who are gathering round now say, looks good. Anderson was very confident in his appeal. We're just getting a first look at the replay now as the ball jags back.
Well, it's hit him on the knee roll.
Well, it's not inside edge, because I think it's the bottom of the bat that scrapes the pad. That's the double sound, so that's the first bit of good news for England.
Yeah, well, has that double sound foxed at the umpire as well? There's no deviation, there's no ball on bat, that's for sure. Going to go and have a look at ball tracking now. And
Height's the issue.
It's all on height.
It's just whether it's umpire's call or not. It's going to be very tight.
And hitting the wickets.
Well, the cheer will tell you.
It's 3 reds. You'll be changing your decision to.
Kane Williamson has got to go. Jimmy Anderson has struck. He's got rid of New Zealand's best bat, and that is exactly what England wanted when they called that declaration. And that is extravagant seam movement back into the right-handed Williamson, who was slow to get his bat down to cover the line. given not out on the field, possibly Elmdale thinking that there was two noises, it was bat on ball, but when that was proven not to be the case, 3 red lights means that the batsman's got to go.
Well, vindication for the declaration. When you think that England picked up Latham at short leg, they've got Williamson now, New Zealand's best player. They should have had Conway as well, who was put down at second slip by Zach Crawley. So 23 for 2, should have been 23 for 3. That's absolute vindication for the move to declare 9 down and get New Zealand batting. And they're not done yet. We've still got, what, a good 31 minutes of play. So England will be hoping to nip out a couple of more. And that then would put them absolutely in the driving seat after day 1 of this Test match.
Well, what a day it's been, and night. It's been a long one, but the crowd has stuck around. It's not quite as full as it was just before the second break of the day, but those that have stayed have been treated to some excellent seamer swing bowling from Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad and Ollie Robinson. 2 wickets falling, should have been 3 as Michael Atherton was just saying, but Devon Conway's still there, but Kane Williamson is not. He is departed leg before for 6, and it means that a batter new to the crease in Henry Nicholls, and he walks to the crease under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of speculation that he's got to provide his New Zealand side with a score of note in this Test match, possibly the one at Wellington. He hasn't been on a great run of form for a period, but his record is markedly better at home than it is away from home. 2 scores of over 50 in 18 months, so that tells its own tale. So what pressure on Henry Nicholls, the left-hander, who's just about to get ready to face his first delivery with, count 'em, 4 slips and a gully in place, but this ball is clipped away into the leg side as Anderson strays onto the pads, and Nicholls is off the mark first ball with 2.
Yeah, Anderson will be a bit sore with himself, a man who sets himself unbelievably high standards. He just gave Henry Nicholls a ball on the batsman's hip there, which is just about the ball that you pray for as a new batter coming in to get off the mark. But this should be a very stiff examination of Henry Nicholls. Stokes is absolutely on the attack here with 5 slips and a leg slip, and England sensing a chance.
Nicholls ready, upward stance, and again on the pads, and forward is Nicholls, and he wants to come back for a quick second and does. So good running from Nicholls. It's one of the things Michael Vaughan always used to say at the start of his innings. He liked to run a couple of, quickly taken singles or come back for a 2, just to get the blood going, the feet moving. But also he said it was about getting the body language. He wanted to get his body language, tell the fielders he wasn't worried, he wasn't scared, he wasn't under pressure, he was there to score some runs.
Yeah, 2 crisp shots really from Henry Nicholls, albeit they were on their pads, and Anderson now has changed the angle of attack, having given him 2 easy balls on his legs. He's now back over the wicket and will be threatening the outside edge.
Right arm over the wicket and wrapped on the pads. There's a little yelp, and the spectator just in front of us here at the commentary box, he just puts both hands in the air. He wanted a little shout, but nothing given. We're going to cross to Jarrod Kimber at the end of what has been another eventful over. We've had 11 wickets set today. We've had bags of runs, a couple of 50s in there as well. Some wonderful little cameos from Harry Brook and Ben Duckett, just showcasing what talent England possess. As Anderson once again pitched up, and thick outside edge flies to 5th slip to bring us to the end of the over. Michael Atherton is going to make way.
Yeah, just on Crawley's slip fielding. So he has dropped 29% of his catches in Test cricket so far. The average in that time is 23%. So he's certainly a below average slip fielder. I think we've seen that with England for quite some while, that their slip fielding specifically has been much worse than the other nations. New Zealand is usually one that is really, really high. And we saw Australia was another country in the Ashes that got off to a really good start for many different reasons, but one of which was Australia didn't drop any catches and England dropped a lot. But Crawley, he does line up like a good slip fielder, but unfortunately he does drop more than his fair share.
Thank you very much indeed. Jared Kimber. Yes, I like the notion of there being a fair share of dropped catches. There. But perhaps he drops slightly more than his fair share in that case, as you said. 4 slips now, as Ollie Robinson is in once more, and that one is driven by Conway for 4. Delightful shot, slightly over pitched from Robinson, and perhaps that was exactly the length that he was intending to pitch it, but he's asking for the drive. He got the drive and it hit the middle of the bat, and Conway picks up his first boundary to move to 15 from 35 balls. Henry Nicholls has been in quite a slump in form, a trough of runs, which normally implies that he's full of them, but he's not. He's under pressure. He's at the non-striker's end at the moment. 4 slips, a gully and a short leg. That one is left alone by Devon Conway outside the off stump, and there's no run. We've had a wonderful, wonderful day's entertainment here at the Bay Oval in Mount Maunganui, Tauranga, the Bay of Plenty. And we have had plenty of entertainment, no shortage of incident, no controversy, I'm delighted to say. Lots of incident, lots of talking points. 31 for 2, New Zealand. England declaring, after just 58.2 overs, with 325 for 9 on the board, was the second quickest declaration in terms of overs faced in the history of Test cricket on the first day of a Test match. And England are now endorsing that decision with a couple of wickets before the close of play. An inside edge here as Robinson is over the wicket to Conway, hits the inside edge onto the pad. Oohs and ahs from the slip cordon, who are currently in a heightened mood of expectation. And why wouldn't they be, with a hard pink ball? No natural light whatsoever now. The floodlights taking full effect, and we've still got something like 27 or 28 minutes to go before the close of play. It's been slow in terms of over rate, but one of the reasons is because of all the incidents and all the stoppages, unscheduled stoppages, as Ollie Robinson runs in once again from the mountain end outside the off stump and left alone. England started at 90 miles an hour with the bat, and now they're continuing, maybe not literally 90 miles an hour with the ball, but there's just something been happening every single over. Steve Harmison?
Yeah, there has, and 90 mile an hour is with the field position that Ben Stokes has just eased, I think, Ollie Pope into, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th slip, and Ben Stokes himself has gone to sort of catch in sort of backward point region.
Oh, another inside edge here. Conway comes forward.Maybe the bat hit the pad. He's in survival mode. He's just waiting for the rank bad ball. Otherwise, he's just trying to get through. Oh, those slips are tightly packed. I know that they're in their chatting positions at the moment, but even when they rack up, they are very tightly packed. And Stokes is, well, he's in a straight gully position. I mean, it's five slips in a gully. Hang on, there's going to be a change.
Yeah, Ollie Pope's going back into his usual short leg position. Ollie Robinson's going back round the wicket. He came over the wicket. I quite like him over the wicket because the angle of his run up. But he's going back to round the wicket.
Up to the crease now, and Conway leaves a wideish one alone outside the off stump. Last ball of the over, and there's no run. You're listening to TalkSport 2 on DAB Radio, online at talksport.com, or your smart speaker, or but you can do so by downloading the TalkSport app. 31 for 2, 13 overs gone earlier today. 2 glorious innings in the 80s. 84 from Ben Duckett, momentarily threatened to become the first Englishman ever to score a century on the first day of a Test match before lunch. Absolutely wonderful. At better than a runner ball. 84 off 68 balls with 15 fours, and Harry Brook continuing his ascent into the highest echelons of the game in just his 6th Test match. Fell 11 short of a 400. A brilliant 89 from only 91 deliveries. Quite extraordinary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 slips in a gully as Anderson continues that one. Just drifting down the leg side. A flick and a miss from Henry Nicholls. And there is no run. Nicely taken by Ben Foakes. Ben Foakes also, we talk about, as always, it's fair enough, we go to the highest scores, we give you the headline acts, but I tell you, when Ben Foakes walked to the crease, England were in a tricky spot at 209 for 5, and he made an excellent 38 from 56 deliveries. It'll go unheralded, it won't get much of a mention, certainly not higher than paragraph 7 or 8 of your newspapers tomorrow, but it was a very, very fine batting effort from him, mature and responsible. Anderson overcompensates and goes outside the off stump, and it's left alone again by Henry Nicholls. They weren't the only three either.
No, they weren't the only three, but the three sort of bigger note. Ollie Pope played a smart innings at number 3. It was a good partnership between Pope and Duckett. Really, Zach Croy looked all at sea. 4 from 14 balls doesn't tell a great story, but when you look at it, he got dropped once and bowled off a no ball.
Edge taken. Crawley hangs on this time. He dropped him in the previous over at second slip. He makes no mistake this time. Crawley atones for his error. Anderson gets the wicket. He was denied in his previous over. New Zealand are 31 for 3. They now in a spot of bother.
Absolutely, what a delivery this is from Jimmy Anderson. Henry Nicholls has to play it. He's got no option. He has to play at this. And he didn't, to be fair, he didn't really play it. He just stuck his bat there. He didn't push at it or anything. It was a good ball in a good area. Squared Henry Nicholls up. Jimmy Anderson has gone from around the wicket to over the wicket to make sure that the New Zealand batsmen play every delivery possible. First one down the leg side, overcompensated for the second one. The third one absolutely perfect, on the money, typical Anderson, outside edge. And I think if Zach Crawley had dropped that one, I think Jimmy Anderson might have just walked off. Excellent catch diving in front of first slip.
I have to say that was as tricky as the first one was straightforward. Crawley's put down
100%. He did. It was as it was. You are spot on, Manners. It was as tricky as it was easy, the first one. He diving across Joe Root at first slip. It probably would have carried to first slip, but when you're in the slip cordon, as you mentioned just a second ago, Manners, they are tightly close together, and when you go for it, you make sure you go and get it. And this time, Zach Crawley made no mistake. The big fella's got big hands. I've seen it again. It's a beauty from Jimmy Anderson. Henry Nicholls, he nicks off a lot. I'm not sure he could have done too much about that. Squared him right up. His bat angle of his bat's coming from sort of second, third slip across his body, across his pads, and he's getting an outside edge. But a typical Anderson dismissal. You give Jimmy Anderson something to work with, i.e. overhead conditions, something in the surface. And boy, does he exploit it. Does he exploit it. Fantastic from Anderson. 2 for 6 off 4.3 overs.
And he has a night watchman. Neil Wagner has come to the crease with 18 minutes to go. He could have to face 4 overs if England get them all in, and there are no stoppages. England have put a man out at deep backward square leg as well. They've got 5 slips and a deep backward square leg as Anderson is into Wagner and beats him immediately. Just back of a length. I think Wagner tried to leave it alone but didn't get the bat out of the way in time. I think he was genuinely beaten outside the off stump. And, well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I can understand it with 7 or 8 minutes to go, but, there's some batting for Wagner to do here.
There is some batting for Wagner to do, and Devon Conway has just gone down and an encouraging word, and I think the encouraging word is you just steer down that end.
Anderson and again Wagner does play this one out towards Broad at wideish mid-on, and they could have taken a single, but that's not why Neil Wagner has been sent out there or has volunteered. These are not your typical volunteering to be night watchman conditions. These are, get them on, Neil. Got a job to do.
Got a job to do, yes, definitely a job to do.
5 slips as Anderson is in again, bowls, beats Wagner outside the off stump again. Well, that's you've got to hope for a little bit of luck in conditions like this as a frontline batsman, never mind as a night watchman. Wagner actually averages 13. He's no mug, he knows what he's doing with the bat, but thrilling stuff, thrill a minute. 14 overs gone, New Zealand 31 for 3 in reply to England's 325 for 9.
It could be a masterstroke though, Manners, from a dressing room 20 minutes before the end, because they might be thinking, well, if we send a tail ender out, he's got no chance of hitting these. So unless he hits the stumps, there's a good chance we might get away with this. That is being, that's having one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is this is a long 18 minutes for Neil Wagner, and got to try and protect Devon Conway as much as he possibly can, because when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, the experience of Latham, the experience of Williamson and Henry Nichols, they've all played over 50 test matches. England declare 325 for 9 when the lights were just about to take their full effect in what is a picturesque Mount Maunganui ground. It was a great, bold and great declaration, because they knew that to seize the moment, this was the time, and Broad, Anderson and Robinson have certainly done that, because Robinson's got 1, Anderson's got 2, Broad's got the ball back in his hand. Broad hasn't got a wicket yet, but he's bowled fantastically well, and he's 4 over so far.
4 slips and a short leg as he runs in from the Mount Wanganui end, and it's brilliantly left by Devon Conway. Broad round the wicket and angling it into Conway. He read it perfectly, line and length. It left it on line and length. 31 for 3 into the 15th over New Zealand. Trailing by 294, England declaring after just 58.2 overs, and making that decision look like not just a bold one, but a clever one, as Conway pushes it defensively out to short leg. He's quite deep, Ollie Pope, at short leg, and ordinarily you would see short leg in at least 2 or 3 steps closer, but that was exactly where he stood when he took the catch to take the first wicket.
Yeah, more for the fact that they're expecting it, that he's there for the ball bouncing, inside edge bouncing onto sort of pad, onto thigh pad, and because of the tallness of the release point of Broad and Robinson, he can be a bit deeper, because he's not expecting it to sort of shoot at him, he's expecting to loop at him, so he's giving him as much time as possible.
Broad is in again, bowls, and driven by Conway up towards mid-on, straight to Ollie Robinson. And there's no run. Who is on 999?
Broad and Anderson.
Yes, indeed.
Broad and Anderson combination. We made a joke of this right at the top of the show when John Norman and myself started and talked about Broad and Anderson and their numbers, and what a great decision it was from Peter Moores and Michael Vaughan to drop the 2 old men, Hoggard and Harmison, to give Anderson and Broad their chance in Wellington. Well, they've never looked back. It's been brilliant.
Flicked away out towards deep backward square leg. Oh my goodness, that wasn't far short of Jack Leach down there on the long leg boundary. It was full and angling into the pads of Stuart Broad, and it was just helped on its way by Devon Conway down towards long leg, and there were cries of catch it. Now it has fallen quite a long way short of Jack Leach, but just momentarily the ball was in the air for a lot longer than the batsman intended.
Yeah, he's just signalling. He didn't really pick it up, Jack Leach. I don't think he would have gotten anywhere near it, to be fair. You're watching the replay again, it bounced well short down at fine leg, but he's signaling he didn't pick it up, and that's a few times now. Neil Wagner himself, who's on strike, was in the deep 2 or 3 times the latter part of the England innings, and he was struggling to pick it up out there on the boundary in these lights.
Here is Broad once again, and this time Neil Wagner, another left-hander. That makes it 4 out of 5 left-handers or 3 out of 4 in the. Yeah, no, it is 4 out of 5 that we've had with Wagner coming in. That one is played defensively, and just been told by Dan McHardy that Neil Wagner has done rather well in recent times as a night watchman, with scores of 49 off 56 balls, batting at 5, and 47 off 35. 47 off 35 balls, batting at number 6. Came out and smashed it in the following morning, evidently. 4 slips, Broad in again, bowls, and this time Conway comes forward and plays it defensively up towards mid-on. Mind you, 49 off 56 isn't exactly grinding it out. But Wagner is an aggressive player. He's got better and better as a batsman, unlike Stuart Broad, as his career has gone on. They're the same age, 36 years old. Wagner's got better and better. Broad's got, well, probably more exciting, but far less predictable.
Yeah, less predictable, and I think the bang on the head against India caused a huge amount of damage to the batting of Stuart Broad. He's now just concentrated on the bowling. Amazing that. You'd say Neil Wagner has been a stalwart of New Zealand cricket, both the same age. Neil Wagner and Stuart Broad. This is Neil Wagner's 61st Test match. Very, very experienced man in New Zealand Test match cricket. And at the same age, Stuart Broad is playing his 160th Test match. So just shows you how much cricket that England do play. And what a champion these two have been. Keep saying great things about Broad and Anderson, but to play the amount of time, this is Jimmy's 178th Test match. To play that amount of time as a fast bowler is just, it's freakish. And 999, I think it is, wickets they've got between them as a combination. I wouldn't bank on, you'd bet heavily on them getting up to 1,000 by the close of play tonight.
I thought you were going to say during this Test match. Here's Anderson then, bowls, and that one goes flying past the outside edge of Neil Wagner. He's bowling over the wicket to the left-handed night watchman, Jimmy Anderson, and that one just went straight on with the arm and flying past the outside edge. And you may well be asking yourself, wherever you're listening to us on TalkSport 2, are they the all-time record combination? Well, the answer is no, but they will be during this Test match, I would think.
Yeah, I think they needed 5, didn't they? I think they needed 5 to go past Warne and McGrath.
And there are 999. Warner McGrath had 1,001 outside the off stump again from Anderson. That's a good leave from Neil Wagner, taken behind by Ben Foakes. That's right. There have been some great combinations, and of course we are talking about only Test matches in which they both played. So it's together. They have a lot more than 999 wickets when you add up their totals, as indeed did McGrath and Warne. We're talking about Test matches played together. Broad and Anderson, the second most productive partnership ever, as Wagner comes forward to Anderson and pushes this firmly straight back past him. That's a good shot. It was a half volley from Jimmy Anderson, who did exceptionally well to get down to his right, and he took a lot of the pace off the ball and he saved a couple of runs. It was very full, and Wagner managed to restrain himself, or limit himself, restrict himself to just a firm push rather than his eyes would have been lighting up at the length of that.
Yeah, it was a good shot from Neil Wagner, and I think if he had pushed it any harder or pushed it away from his body, hands away from his body a little bit more, then Jimmy Anderson would have been in business. And that's what he's trying to get the top order batsman to do, play away from the body. But it was a fine shot from the night watchman.
Here is Anderson, and full outside the off stump. Good leave from Devon Conway, the left-handed opener and white ball keeper. Devon Conway doesn't keep in Test matches. He's 16 from 46. Neil Wagner 4 from 7, and the men out in this New Zealand innings so far. Tom Latham caught at short leg by Ollie Pope off Ollie Robinson for just 1. 10 for 1 became 23 for 2 when Kane Williamson, the big one, was trapped LBW by Jimmy Anderson. We haven't perhaps made enough of the quality of the review. It was given not out, as this time Conway is well beaten by Jimmy Anderson. Again, he was just fumbling at that one. It was almost like he didn't pick it up. But yeah, brilliant team effort. Now, Anderson was absolutely convinced, but it was still a team effort. Just because he's Jimmy Anderson, Ben Stokes isn't going to say, OK, Jimmy, fine, you want the review, here it is. They consulted, they talked, and it was actually, the conclusion was reached quite quickly. They didn't need the 15 seconds. I think it was about 5 or 6.
I thought it was an excellent review, and Anderson was adamant from, you go off first reaction, player reaction, and Anderson was adamant straight away. He thought that was out.
And that one is pushed just wide of short leg, wide of Ollie Pope. Momentarily in the air, but it was wide of Pope anyway. So it wasn't a catch, and Conway takes the single. 16 overs gone, 37 for 3. So Williamson's wicket was a massive one, 23 for 2. And Henry Nicholls, who's been struggling for form in recent times for New Zealand, was well caught at second slip by Zach Crawley off Jimmy Anderson for 4. Jimmy Anderson, for all his passion and enthusiasm, he will allow himself to be talked down from an appeal, unlike many other fast bowlers.
Oh yeah, definitely, he will. It's a simple one for Ben Stokes. You look at Jimmy Anderson straight away. He was adamant. Jimmy was adamant. So Ben Stokes had no hesitation. On the other hand, if it had been the bloke at the other end, Stuart Broad, I think he would have thought twice, because Stuart thinks everything's out. And you've got to temper his enthusiasm and the art of leadership and the captaincy is to put all that in the melting pot and make a decision. And fortunately, the correct decision was made.
Here's Stuart Broad. We're coming towards the end of the day's play, and what an enthralling one it's been. That one is pushed defensively by Conway up towards mid-off. So, I mean, my point is that even when Jimmy's bowling on a flat one on a hot day and he's into his 7th over and the steam coming out of his ears and he's absolutely convinced, if the keeper says to him, it was going down, mate, it was absolutely going down, he does say, oh, really?
Yeah, he does. He's
okay.
Obviously he's realistic. He knows what's there because he knows it for a fact he might need the review later on down the line. So he's not going to burn any when he potentially leads them further down the line on a hot summer's day.
Here's Broad outside the off stump. That one started wide and seamed away even wider. Couldn't get much further away from a hot summer's day right now. It's a very cool summer's evening under floodlights.
It is a cool summer's evening under floodlights, but it's not stopping the Barmy Army. You can hear them, the trumpets going, they're giving them one last push. This is what this great travelling support of England do, to try and get England all the way to the end of the game, the last 5 minutes. This is what England bowlers need.
Here's Broad up to the crease again, and it's just wide enough for Conway to leave with confidence. He remains on 17. Night watchman Neil Wagner on 4. New Zealand 37 for 3. In 19 series between the countries played in this country, New Zealand had won only one until the last 2, which they won both of. So I think revenge might be going a bit too far, but the first series between these countries in New Zealand played in 1929. Here's Broad again, and Conway comes forward, defends it up towards Robinson at mid-on, who, a bit like a dog with a tennis ball in his dog bed, didn't know where it was for a moment. He was going round and round looking for it between his feet.
How was that series, man? As we commentating on that one?
The 1982 one?
1929.
No, I was watching it on TV. So it took until 1982-83 for New Zealand to actually win. And then they didn't win another one until 2018, and they've won the last 2. So they've won 3 in total out of 19. Here's Broad, and right up, full and straight, up towards mid-on. There's no run. I thought you were talking about the 82-83 series.
It just sounded as though you knew a lot about the 1929 one. That you might have been still commentating back then, but
uncovered wickets, uncovered run-ups. You'd have loved it.
I was part of the series win in 2008, but I did a very good job for New Zealand to get off to a good start and put a foothold in that Test series.
Here's Broad once again around the wicket. Conway comes forward and nudges that one again up towards Robinson at mid-on, and there's no run. Look at Jimmy Anderson. He is trotting up to the other end. He wants another over, and who can blame him? New Zealand are 37 for 3.
Yeah, he desperately wants another over, especially when you've got night watchman Neil Wagner on strike. Jimmy's eyeing up that 1,000 wickets between Broad and Anderson, walking off for 3 wickets at the end of play tonight. And have bowled superbly. I know everything's been in their favour, and we've talked a lot about Broad, Anderson and Robinson and what the conditions would be, and if they're given the right conditions, they're going to exploit them to the best of their capabilities. But there's pressure that comes with that, and they haven't disappointed. They've been fantastic, England.
Here's Anderson now to Neil Wagner, who pushes that one out towards mid-on, and there was just momentarily a bit of excitement. I do hope that someone on the TalkSport team is going to pop out onto the scaffolding and take a photograph of this last over, because it's a glorious field. England have got everybody in catching positions. There's 5 slips, a leg slip, a leg gully, a short leg, and Stuart Broad's catching at mid-off as Wagner comes forward and pushes that one past Broad, who knows that he doesn't need to chase it because the night watchman's not going to take any runs, or at least Devon Conway at the non-strikers end isn't going to let Neil Wagner take any runs. You're out here to do a job, mate. You've almost done it. In fact, he has done it now, because if a wicket fell now, that would be it.
Yeah, he's done his job perfectly well. Well, not perfectly well, because he needs to see these last 4 balls out, but they will walk off if the wicket goes.
Broad in, bowls to Wagner, bangs it in short into the rib cage. Wagner wasn't in control, leaping up onto the back foot, and it could have popped up into the air. That was the plan, that's why he bowled it, but it fell harmlessly to ground.
It's a little bit similar to the ball that got Henry Nicholls. But Wagner, because he's a tail ender, is staying square on and being able to bring the bat down from behind him, be able to access it a lot more easier, a lot more safer, where Nicholls got squared up and brought the leading edge into play because the bat came from second slip.
Broad now around the wicket, and I'm not sure whether Wagner played and missed at that one or whether he just tucked the bat inside the line. I suspect that he had a little push at it.
I think as tail enders we'd normally do, just pull the bat away, look as though we're leaving it, but unfortunately we have a little dabble at it first. Yes, I think he did. Just have a little push at it, then pulled it away to say to Jimmy Anderson, well bowled. I left that one. Got to bowl a bit fuller, a bit straighter to get me to play at it.
A glorious sight, this. All the players on the square or behind catching as Wagner now comes forward and quite confidently pushes this one up towards mid-on. There is no mid-on. Jimmy Anderson has to do his own fielding, which he happily does.
He's played very well as Neil Wagner, probably played more accomplished than the left-hander that he replaced in Henry Nicholls. I know there was a lot of talk whether it was Will Young or Henry Nicholls who was going to play in this test match to bat at number 4. Neil Wagner strode out at night watching at number 5, and he's played a lot more solid innings than the left-hander before him. Jimmy Anderson just started to come in, false start. Stuart Abroad is trying to find a field position, not sure where he's going. He's gone to catching on the leg side.
Silly mid-on, we used to call that, under 13s. Here's Jimmy Anderson round the wicket again, bowls to Wagner and bangs it in just back of a length, hits the splice of the bat, trickles off behind square on the leg side. The umpires flick the bails off to conclude what has been a memorably absorbing first day's play in the first test match between New Zealand and England from the Bay Oval here in Mount Maunganui. It has been just helter-skelter stuff at times. England scoring for the best part at 6 and over throughout the course of their innings. Fabulous top order performance from Ben Duckett and a middle order performance from Harry Brook. Top scored with 89, and Ollie Pope with 42, and Ben Foakes, his Surrey teammate, with 38, playing more than useful and important supporting roles. England galloping along, undeterred and unperturbed by the fall of wickets, finishing on 325 for 9, and only finishing because Ben Stokes declared in the second quickest time ever in the first innings of a test match after just 58.2 overs. And well, New Zealand have lost 3 wickets in reply. One of the reasons for the hasty declaration, not only because England were 9 down, one of the reasons they were 9 down is because they wanted a bowl this evening under lights, and that's exactly what they've done, and they've done so very, very effectively. 37 for 3. It's been cricket on fast forward, as we've come to expect under the Stokes and McCullum regime, and it's been absolutely absorbing, and it's been enjoyed by not quite a capacity crowd, but it's certainly 7,000 or 8,000 on the beautiful grass banks at the Bay Oval. They're all filing out now at the end of a cool evening, but absolutely brilliant and absorbing day's play.